Hi friends, this is Caitlin. Welcome back to Scrapbook Pals YouTube channel. Today we are going to be playing with the Spellbinders, the Painter's Garden Zinnia dies. These are so fun. You get this one that has the two larger flower pieces in one. You get the smaller flower pieces, these tiny mini flowers that go as extra decoration, and then two leaves. And each die has the number of times you're going to die cut it etched right into it. So it's super simple. These are really fun because you can really play around to customize them. I played with some that I'll show you at the end of this video where I doubled up everything for a really dramatic flower. And then I'm also going to be making a bud with you guys. It's just going to have two of the smaller large flowers and then the center parts the same as the regular one. So we're going to jump in by making just a standard flower according to those etching directions first. And I'm going in with Copic markers on 80-pound plain white cardstock, and I cut all of my pieces from the same paper. I'm going in with the V06 to start out, just kind of coloring in the center and then flicking my color out and then filling in the rest of the petal with a V04. Then I'm going to flip my flower over and just color the edges of each petal. You can color in the whole thing if you want. I just think that it's nice to have a little color on the back so that when we fold our flowers later and curve them, you never see any of the white in the finished product. But I also didn't feel the need to color in the whole thing because you're not going to see the bottom center of the flower. But whatever makes you happy, go for it. So I'm going to do the same thing on the second one, but I'm using less of my darker color, less of my medium color, and I'm going to be bringing in a third lighter shade just right on the edges. I've also seen people color these in solid and it still looks absolutely beautiful. I just really love the extra texture and interest that shading them like this adds. So if you haven't tried this out, it's definitely fun. It is a little repetitive, but in some ways it's very therapeutic, and this was really fun to do. I made some of these to practice, and I literally just did them listening to an audiobook and kind of just cruised through and did a bunch of different colors, and it was really calming and relaxing. So if you need a quiet, crafty night where you don't have to think a lot, this would be a great way to pre-make a bunch of your flowers. So for the smaller of the larger dies, I guess medium, we'll call this the medium flower. On these medium flowers, I did the same process, but I'm using just the lighter shades now. And for this one that's going to be the most center of them, the top layer of these specific set, I'm also bringing in a V01 just for an extra light shade to really make everything pop. And then to contrast against that, on these mini inner parts, I'm using a V06, that darkish shade again, and just solidly coloring that in on the front and back. I'm bringing in that medium V04 for this one, front and back. And on the little guy, I'm going to go back in with that dark V06, again, just for more contrast and interest and to really pop the center. I Googled zinnias to make sure that I was trying to follow, you know, how they look in real life. And all of the ones that I saw definitely had a darker center versus the petals, those bigger petals that were at the top of the flower. So now for the bud, I'm going in with two of those medium flowers again, and then one each of the center smaller flowers. I'm going in with some YR markers for this one. I'll have all of the colors listed down in the description box below for you, but it's the YR09 is my center, YR15 is my medium shade, and I'm using that for the outer part of the bottom layer, the inner part of the top layer, and then I'm bringing in that even lighter golden orange, that YR23 for the edges of that lighter petal. And then again, going in with my darker shades for the inner parts of this flower, just to again make that really pop and stand out on the finished card. So now for my leaves, I am going in with some YG markers. I really wanted some fresh, bright, springy colors. So I am shading in the stem and then just flicking color out like little veins coming from the middle of the leaf. This is going to mimic the actual like texture that we're going to give these leaves in a minute. And I also like to shade the edges of the back of the leaves because we are going to be helping to kind of curl them up and give them some texture. So that way, again, we don't have any white cardstock showing at the end. And then I'm coloring the front and backs of these little mini flowers. These are actually supposed to be little teeny tiny flowers that some zinnias have that blossom around the edges. That yellow flower that I have already pre-completed, I'm not going to add them to, but we are going to add some to the purple zinnia when we put it together on our card. So I treated myself to Susan's Garden tool set and ultimate tool set, and it is amazing. It comes with the tool-in-one that you can switch out all the different ends on. It comes with super sharp, precise scissors, some reverse tweezers, some regular tweezers, and then the 2 different pads that you need to use to create these textures. I did originally try this out on craft foam when I was waiting for my ultimate toolkit to come in the mail, and it still worked, but the craft foam is going to fall apart super quick. It's just really thin, where this like block really holds up. I can tell this is going to last me a very long time, and it comes in that little pouch so you can keep it all together. So to curl our flowers, all I'm doing is taking the smallest ball tool, and I'm with my fingers just folding each petal around the barrel of that tool, and I'm going to do that for all of my petals. I found it was easier just to hold it, but if you like putting it into the actual tool-in-one to do that process, go for it. And then to cup all of the different layers, I'm going in with the large ball for the larger flowers, and they call it stirring. I'm literally just making little circles on the inside section, and it helps to curl up and cup the flowers. For the medium flowers, I'm going in with the medium ball, and for these little guys, I'm going to start with the medium and I'm going to intensify them with the smallest one. So you just swap them out. The tool works really easily, and everything locks into place, but it can be switched really quickly. I love that. It's super convenient. Then for those little itty bitties, I just kind of press down in the middle to help give them a little bit of a cup shape. And I decided to add even more texture by taking the lighter shaded small flower and cutting each of those little sections in half. That's just going to help to kind of fringe it out and give it a little bit of a fluffier look. Then for my leaves, this little white pad is called the leaf pad, and I am using the leaf tool to score and just create a line on the back of each leaf, folding it over and adding some extra definition with that same shade of marker that I drew my initial stem middle section in, but it just kind of helps to pop and give it a little more detail. Then I'm going in with that same leaf tool and just adding those veins coming from that center stem. And then I'm going to put those onto the black foam pad and go in with that medium ball again and just kind of scratch and do little circles all the way around the edge, and it just helps to kind of flare up the edge of the leaf and give it just a little extra texture and interest so that when you go to tuck it into your card, it doesn't just sit flat. So you don't have to do that step, but I just really love the extra texture and detail that it brings to the finished product, especially because our flowers are so textured. So I'm going in now with the bamboo trellis embossing folder from Spellbinders as well, and I love the texture that these 3D embossing folders give. It's super impactful in person, but I really wanted to up the detail and make sure that you could really see it well in the video and in real life. And so I took some frayed burlap distress ink on a mini blending tool, and I'm kind of dry brushing where I'm tapping off the extra ink onto a piece of scrap paper and just going in and kind of rubbing the extra ink so it's just catching the highest points of the embossed areas, and it's beautiful. It just brings out all of the dimension for those bamboo areas and all of the like cross hatching of where they're kind of strapped together. I love it. I'm so glad that I added that ink. It really just helps to make it pop and stand out and helps to support all of the detail of those flowers that we're going to be adding to it. So I went in with the Scrapbook Adhesives thin foam squares and added them to the back just for a little extra touch of dimension. This is definitely a card you're going to want to hand deliver or mail in a padded envelope of some kind. So I figured if I'm already going to have to do that, I might as well just really go for the dimension and add that extra layer. And then I took my pre-made flower and glued that down kind of at an angle. I'm using Lawn Fawn liquid glue, and I know a lot of people seem to prefer a really thick glue for this process, but I found that the Lawn Fawn precision glue worked just fine. It held up great. It kept my stuff where I wanted it to be. I just would hold the centers down with the tweezers for a second, literally count to 5 if even, and I was good to go. So I'm building that purple flower kind of at an angle as well. And I like having some of my flowers pre-made, but also making them, some of them in the moment, so that you know that everything's going to fit together really well. I'll show you an extra project I made with my bonus flowers, my extra practice flowers at the end. And it was a little hard to put them together because I made all of them ahead of time and not all of them wanted to sit at the angle that I ended up needing them. So I do like doing this combination technique of having some pre-made and making some just to fit into the card. So you literally are just working layer by layer, adding a touch of glue to the center of each flower and then layering it up. And then with these itty bitty guys, you just add a teeny dot of glue, and I'm just tucking them around the edges of those tiny center florals. You can also glue them up on the top, kind of around in a circle. That's how they look in that Spellbinders picture that comes on the packaging. But I, just looking at zinnias online, the ones that I was most drawn to had them kind of tucked more around the side. So that's the look that I decided to go for. So now I'm going to put together that little orange bud of a zinnia. And the same thing, I'm kind of just tucking him down at an angle, and you want to kind of stagger these so that your leaves or your petals aren't all lined up. And you can see how I put them down, they're kind of in the same spot, but these are cool because you can just take your tweezers and while the glue is still wet, manipulate that floral and kind of spread your petals around. And now it's completely fixed with no gaps, and you would never know that they were stacked for a minute. So I added some of that same glue just to the tips of my leaves, and I'm tucking them under, then going in with the edge of my tweezers just to push down and make sure that that adhesive is really making great contact with that bamboo base, just because it does have so much texture from that embossing folder. And this is kind of the fun part of just playing to see what angles you want to create, what gaps you want to fill, where you kind of want to draw the eye. But I love this kind of combination of 3 for the flowers. Odd numbers tend to be really appealing to the eye anyway. And I just think that the way they lay on this card, it's just beautiful. I love it. So I did go in and add pretty much all of the leaves I had prepared. And then I needed a sentiment. So I grabbed these from Spellbinders as well. These labels, they're so beautiful. I cut the bigger label area out of white cardstock, and it comes with this string so that you can give the look of it being tied on. So I cut the string and the inner part of my label from the same craft cardstock that I used for my bamboo panel, just to keep everything nice and simple and let the flowers really be the colorful focus. And to hold those in place, I didn't want to wait for my liquid glue to dry. So I took the smaller of the Scrapbook Adhesives thin foam squares and just stuck them down to basically tape them into place, and then added some of the bigger ones across the middle to support the rest of the label. So I stamped my sentiment with my Honeybee Stamps Intense Black ink. The You Mean the World fits perfectly into this little label. I'm just using the piece that I die cut it out of, the scrap paper I die cut it from, to hold it in place in my MISTI because it's so tiny. That helps if you are dealing with tiny pieces in your MISTI to just make your stamping a lot easier. And then all I had to do was trim and tuck the little fake string bits, and they tucked right into the back part of my panel. If I had thought about this before, I would have pre-done this part and like taped them down. But with those foam adhesives on the back, I know this isn't going anywhere, and they tucked really well. So I'm not worried about it. And then I just popped that little craft sentiment right on the top with liquid glue. And here is the bonus piece. I took another piece of the bamboo craft cardstock that I had embossed and made a little box, and then added in all of these different zinnias in different shades just as a little extra bonus gift that I can send my recipient. I just think these are so much fun. I hope you're feeling super inspired. Make sure you're coming back and subscribing to the YouTube channel so you're not missing out on any crafty, fun inspiration from Scrapbook Pal. I hope you have an amazing week, and as always, happy crafting.